Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, I should say. I want to acknowledge, firstly, we're on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nation. And I want to start by thanking and acknowledging every worker who's on shift right now, providing critical services for British Columbians. Of course, healthcare workers, janitorial staff, first responders, truck drivers, utility workers, to the people that worked at our grocery stores and our ports and providing critical childcare for those critical employees in the workplace. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart on behalf of all British Columbians for providing those critical services at this extraordinary time. COVID-19 touches all of our lives, and it also touches our economy. Dr. Bonnie Henry has given us specific direction in how we can slow the spread of this virus, how we should conduct ourselves when we interact with other people in the community, and these steps are critically important to protect our health. They must be adhered to, they must be followed. But I also think every day about the single parent who's concerned about having to leave work to care for a child or a loved one. I'm concerned about those other workers in the workplace who don't know whether they should be at work. Are they providing a critical service? Low and middle income families who are concerned that missing a paycheck, missing two paychecks, means that they're going to fall further behind with their monthly payments. Small business owners who don't know whether they should keep their staff. How will they keep their staff? How long will this last? Hospitality workers concerned that they may well be able to access programs at this point in time, but how are they going to go forward when no one is going to restaurants? The tourism economy is slowing to a halt. How will that affect them? How will self-employed people with a modest background also be able to get by without the significant social safety net other hourly employees often have? So this is stressful, no question about that. But people need help now. Businesses need help now. And that's why we're focusing today on announcing our action plan for the economy. In a moment, I'll ask Minister James to go through the details, but the high-level discussion is a $5 billion action plan, $2.8 billion focused on people and services, $2.2 billion focused on businesses and recovery going forward. If we are going to get through this very, very difficult issue for all British Columbians, all Canadians, and indeed all citizens of the world, we have to focus on making sure that the most vulnerable in our community are protected. So the first steps we're going to focus on with the action plan, making sure that critical funding for health services is there now and going forward. Direct financial support for people is in the package, as well as deferment of payments, and Carol will outline those, and indeed targeted tax relief as well. Parts of the plan will take effect right away, and other parts will take more time. There has to be a way forward. There has to be hope as we get through these difficult, challenging times. We've been focusing in government, of course, on daily briefings from Minister Dix, daily briefings from Dr. Bonnie Henry. Minister Farnworth, responsible for emergency preparedness, has made it abundantly clear that emergency legislation, emergency protections here in BC can and will be implemented. And I'm going to ask Carol in a moment to talk about how we will finance all of this going forward. It seems inconceivable that just over a month ago, we tabled a balanced budget. It seems inconceivable that just over a month ago, this room would have been filled with cameras and journalists asking questions. And today we're all gathered looking forward. What can we, as a group of people here on the north coast of North America, with the Pacific on one side of us, the Rocky Mountains on another, the United States below us, and the great Yukon and Northwest Territories above us, how can we, in all of this sea of humanity, 7 billion souls, how can the 5 million of us work together, pull together to make sure we all come out the other end of this as well as we possibly can? Today's package includes support for renters. It's going to be there to ensure that no one will be evicted because of COVID-19. We're attempting to deliver these programs while we're developing them. And I want to just emphasize that for a minute for those who are watching at home. Extraordinary need, without doubt. Extraordinary people within the public service, within the private sector, all coming together to come up with plans on a way forward, not just for the day-to-day, but for the next week, the next month, the next 2 months. That's what you expect from your government. That's what you expect from those in the business community that are there asking me every day, how can we help? We can help by listening to Dr. Henry. We can help by ensuring that we're doing everything we can to separate ourselves, appropriate physical distance, making sure that we isolate if we don't have to be in the workforce, and ensuring all the while that we're caring for our neighbors when they need that help. Today, we will have an extraordinary session of the Legislative Assembly. 12 members from across British Columbia will be in the legislative session to pass 2 pieces of legislation. Firstly, employment standards legislation to make sure that no worker loses their job because they're self-isolating or caring for a sick one in the family. This cooperation across party lines has been quite extraordinary, and I want to thank all members of the legislature for putting aside partisanship absolutely and unequivocally so we can focus on working on this together. Our system is based on an adversarial relationship between government and opposition, and that's as it should be. But in extraordinary times, extraordinary measures are required. And I'm grateful to the BC Liberals and the BC Greens for their approach to this process as being one of conciliation, one of how can we all work together to get this done. Finally, Carol will be, or Minister James, I'm sorry for being so familiar. I'm really familiar with her. Minister James will be laying out a supply bill that will fund the programs that we're putting in place to make sure that we're there for people today, we're there for businesses today, and that all of us come out of this at the other end stronger as a result of that effort. I firmly believe that working together, all of us will get through this. But we need to be kind, we need to be considerate, we need to be thoughtful, but we also need to ensure that we're taking the direction that Dr. Henry is providing for us so that we can be safe, we can protect those that are vulnerable, and get through this better off. And I'll ask Carol now to go through the details of the action plan.
Thank you so much, Premier. And I want to begin by recognizing we're on the traditional territory of the Esquimalt and Songhees people and thank them for the ability to meet on their land. Before I get into the details of the COVID-19 action plan, I also want to take a moment to express my gratitude to everyone working on the front line, including doctors, nurses, care aides, paramedics. I want to thank all those people who are keeping our community going, including grocery clerks, transit drivers, municipal, provincial, and federal workers. I want to express my incredible gratitude for people who are helping each other stay safe and showing compassion for their neighbors. I want to thank businesses who are being so diligent to help stop the spread of the virus. And I also want to express my appreciation to the government and opposition MLAs who are also working as part of the COVID-19 Seniors Working Group and have gone beyond and above to be able to find ways for volunteer networks to support seniors safely across our province. And finally, thank you to all members of the legislature and members of the media and the press who are keeping British Columbians informed. For us in government, knowing that there's a community of people and professionals throughout the province who are working hard to address health and safety has made it possible for us to turn our minds to helping the people and the businesses who are struggling with the effects of COVID-19 pandemic as quickly as we can. Recently, as you know, our federal counterparts outlined their COVID-19 response fund for healthcare and an economic response fund to be able to help Canadians get through the pandemic. BC COVID-19 Action Plan, which I'm going to outline today, builds on that work and fills in some very specific gaps for British Columbia. It's a $5 billion plan, as the Premier has said, that addresses some of the immediate needs of British Columbians and businesses. I want to emphasize that this plan is a starting point. It's going to have to evolve as the situation evolves. And we are going to do everything we need to keep British Columbians safe, healthy, and supported, and to keep our economy strong. So to begin that work and to talk about the specifics, I've committed $1.7 billion in investments for critical services. This funding is going to be put to use in the weeks and months ahead to ensure that people have the services and supports they need, including funding to address the major healthcare pressures our province is facing, funding for investment in housing and shelters, including support for tenants struggling to pay rent, looking at rental support programs, funding to support those on income and disability assistance and our most vulnerable people, support for individuals and families who've been affected by this pandemic, and support for businesses who have been hard hit during this crisis. We know that there are people now who are unable to work and need help paying their rent and bills. I'm sure others have heard these concerns, as we have, from people across the province. Workers who are sick or quarantined or isolated, who've been laid off. Parents who are having to stay home from work because schools are closed, and those who are caring for sick family members. Our COVID-19 action plan allocates $1.1 billion in funding to provide relief to workers and their families. A new BC emergency benefit for workers will provide a one-time tax-free $1,000 payment to workers in British Columbia whose ability to work has been affected by the outbreak. This benefit will be available to British Columbians eligible for employment insurance as a result of COVID-19's impact, eligible for the new federal emergency care benefit, and eligible for the new federal emergency support benefit. So this will add to benefits that are received under those federal supports. The BC Emergency Benefit for Workers will support EI eligible workers, as well as those who may not qualify for EI, including non-EI eligible workers who become laid off, non-EI eligible workers who are sick or quarantined, including those who are self-employed, non-EI eligible workers who are taking care of a family member who is sick, such as an elderly parent, and also parents whose children require care or supervision because of childcare or school closures and are unable to earn employment insurance, whether they qualify for employment insurance or not. So this payment works in concert with the federal measures so that people affected by COVID-19 crisis have the swift support they need to provide for themselves and their families. Now, we know that the COVID-19 pandemic affects everyone differently, and that could include lost income or additional costs. That's why we're looking at a second measure, to work to offset some of these costs with further support through a top-up to the BC Climate Action Tax Credit. This enhanced credit will go to 86% of individuals and families in our province. It will provide up to $218 for adults and up to $64 per child. This enhanced payment builds on the regular BC Climate Action Tax Credit payment, which provides $43.50 per adult and $12.75 per child. So once people have filed their 2019 tax returns and determined they're eligible for the credit, a family of 4 will receive $564 in July. Combined with the federal credit and benefit enhancements, British Columbians will have a little bit more fiscal security over this time of uncertainty. For people who are worried about making rent, I want to talk a little bit about the housing security piece. People who are out of work or off the job are worried about paying their rent. They're worried about details on how to support them. And we're looking right now at those details. We're exploring things like expanding the existing SAFER, a supplement for seniors, or the RAP program, rent supplements for people who are working poor. That would provide an opportunity, again, with expanded criteria for people to be able to get supports. You will have heard on the weekend that we've halted all evictions for BC Housing funded buildings. And I have to say I'm incredibly encouraged by stories of landlords like Port Living in Vancouver who've already taken steps to pause evictions of tenants, taking that step of kindness at a time when we need it the most. I'm hopeful that other landlords will show the same respect for their tenants in these extraordinary times. For homeowners, Canada's banks and credit unions are working to pause mortgage and loan payments for those in need, and to help seniors stay at home safely and ensure that they have the help they need, we are adding $50 million to the United Way to support them and expand their network in programs such as Better at Home. Better at Home is a program, for those of you who don't know, that helps seniors with simple day-to-day tasks like grocery shopping, yard work. It helps address social isolation so they can continue to live independently in their own homes and yet remain connected to their communities. Around the province, we all rely on a network of program and service delivery agencies, many who are not-for-profit, who deliver important social services. These agencies, like childcare providers, will continue to receive that funding. Payments will continue to flow even if they must temporarily close or experience other operational disruptions. In addition, there are cases where ministries will provide additional funding to address increased costs for essential service agencies so they can continue their operations. Last week, you heard the federal government announce a freeze on Canada's student loan payments and interest accrual for 6 months. As of March 30th, 2020, BC will follow suit. All student loan payments, which are already interest-free in British Columbia, will be paused until September 30th, 2020, so that people will be better able to care for themselves. BC Hydro and ICBC will also be working with their customers to provide increased support and understanding during this crisis. BC Hydro clients can defer their bill payments or arrange for flexible payment plans with no penalty. For those people struggling in the face of reduced income, they can now defer their hydro bills, and they can use BC Hydro's Customer Crisis Fund, which offers up to $600. ICBC will be working to offer more driver license renewals online or over the phone, so fewer people have to go in person. And customers on a monthly auto plan payment may be able to defer their payments as well for up to 90 days with no penalty. We all know that everything's changing rapidly. We're worried for the well-being of our family, our friends, and our community, and that includes businesses across this province. These are difficult times. Businesses, small and large, are struggling to find ways to keep their doors open and look after their employees. I want businesses to know that we're here to support you as we get on the path to recovery. To reduce the pressure on businesses, we will be deferring many of the provincial tax filing and payment deadlines to September 30th, 2020. That includes payment of provincial sales tax, municipal and regional district tax, carbon tax, motor fuel tax, tobacco tax, and the employer's health tax. We're also delaying the expansion of the PST registration requirements announced in Budget 2020. Specifically, that would be the PST on e-commerce services and on sweetened carbonated drinks. We're also delaying the increase of the carbon tax, which was due to increase on April 1st, 2020. And we're going to review the timing of all these taxes by September 30th, 2020. To further support cash flow for businesses, commercial and industrial properties in Class 4, 5, or 6 are going to have their tax cut rate cut in half for the 2020 tax year. That will be a cost of $500 million to fund this relief. Tax savings, for example, for the average urban commercial property owner is going to be about $4,000. We do expect that these savings will flow through to tenants who have triple net leases, providing support to them as well. One key area that we are prioritizing is the hard-hit tourism, hospitality, and cultural sectors. So we built into our plan support, details to come, to help the tourism, the arts and culture sectors survive the immediate crisis and also to help them come back strong in the future. These are some of the immediate steps the government is taking to build on the federal aid package and support British Columbians today. But we're also looking to the future. The COVID-19 pandemic is a massive global disruption. It's affecting each and every one of us. BC's economic sectors, industries, and businesses are feeling the impact, and we know they are struggling. Our government will be establishing a recovery task force that will include representatives from BC's business and labour sectors. And to make sure that people know that we are serious about this recovery, we've set aside $1.5 billion to plan for the province's recovery. When we start seeing signs of that recovery, this funding will help provide stimulus where it's needed the most, encourage investment throughout the province and with our international partners, and further develop BC's competitiveness. So to conclude, the COVID-19 Action Plan focuses on 3 specific areas: protecting the health and safety of British Columbians and the people on the front lines of this crisis, bringing in immediate relief for people and businesses in our province and coordinating with the federal initiatives, and beginning to lay the foundation for BC's economic recovery in partnership with business and labour. Each of these areas reflect our government's focus on creating a strong, sustainable economy that works for the people of this province.